I read 9 books in the month of February, so without further ado, let's get into my reviews. First, I'm going to start off with the elephant in the room, and that is Sarah J Maas' House of Flame and Shadow. This was probably the biggest release in the fantasy world. Not probably, it definitely was. I ended up rating it 3 stars, but that was a very, very generous 3 stars. Now, I've kind of like beaten around the bush with my review just a little bit, but I think I'm going to go into it a lot more in detail in this review. So this one is going to be long, and it is actually going to be full of spoilers. So if you don't want to hear any Sarah J Maas spoilers, just fast forward. Let's get the crossover out of the way. I read The Crescent City. I pushed myself through. I listened to it on Audible. I kept going purely for the crossover, for the hope, for the prayer that Aelin would be in this book. It was not present, and that is totally fine. Like, fan theories were wrong. I don't care about that. What I do care about, however, is that you have the biggest crossover in your universe. First, you spoil it. Literally weeks before the release. You know everyone is reading the book. You know. Her team and whoever came up with the post totally failed so many readers. I can put that down. But you have the biggest crossover. Not only are they in a cave for 200 pages, you don't get Rhys, you don't get Feyre, don't even get Cassian. They don't go anywhere. They just have the cave and Nesta, and then eventually Azriel. I loved Azriel, and I loved Nesta and Bryce together, but the fact that Feyre didn't even speak. She didn't speak once. Like, why? I think it was poorly executed for a crossover. It really was. It was lackluster. There is so many people that say it's a Crescent City book, not an ACOTAR book. That's completely fine, but it was a boring crossover. They were in a cave for 200 pages. There's just plot holes. There's just things that happened that it was just too easy, and I was like, why did you make it be that? The bean that she ate to speak their language? I'm sorry, what? Since when do they have a bean to speak other languages? Then you have the caves that Rhys apparently doesn't know about. How does he not know about them? How does Azriel's shadows not pick up on it? Like, the entire thing, I was just like, this is very bizarre. The hologram. They don't have that technology in the ACOTAR world. So how the hell does it get to the ACOTAR world? She doesn't bring this technology over and then forget about the technology. Like, the hologram in itself is a plot hole. The 200 pages for it to just be this massive info dump. Her entire story was dumped. It was word vomited, and there was so much information that you had to piece, and your mind had to come around. I had to keep rereading it over and over and over. I got the gist of it. Didn't pick up on the nitty-gritty stuff though. That's the first thing. Now moving on to the Crescent City characters. Lydia carried this story on her back. She was the only interesting character. Her and Rune. Hunt and Bryce, the biggest thing is he has been tortured. Not the first time in his life. He's been tortured, nearly died. Bryce has jumped worlds. He didn't know if he was ever going to see her again. She's lost in the freaking universe for all he knows. Nothing when they return. Nothing. And the excuse for why they didn't even hug when they first saw each other is like kind of pathetic, let's just be honest. And I've never really connected to the Crescent City characters, but especially not in this book. Bryce, I don't know what happened to her character. I don't know what happened to the character from the first book specifically, but this book, Bryce was a bad carbon copy of Aelin. All of a sudden, she's looking down and cleaning her nails to feign ignorance. All of a sudden, she's coming up with these amazing plans that she never tells anyone until they come into fruition, and she goes, see, I'm a genius. This is what I did. That's Aelin. You can create very strong characters with them being unique. Feyre is a strong character. She's strong in her femininity, but she's very different from Aelin. And Aelin is very much in her masculine in strength. Bryce, from the get-go for me, was a little bit too similar to Aelin, but she still was different from her. Now I'm like, she's not different. This is just watered down version of Aelin. Also, I actually like the plot line, but I do agree with people's review. Why was the plot line of Ethan and Sabine in there? Like, why? Being in charge of the wolves is going to come into the 4th book, and that it's not all for nothing. But my biggest issue is that 3 ginormous epic fantasy books have been about destroying the Asteri, and they were gone within 2 pages. There was no huge fight. Like, they were built up to be this almighty god. They could not be destroyed, and just gone. So no one died. No big main character death. The stakes weren't high. They were written that they were high, but they weren't high. So that is my review. 3 stars. The Teacher by Freida McFadden. I have read the blurb so many times. I have checked for trigger warnings in this book so many times. There was no trigger warnings, and I think the marketing and I think that the blurb does not accurately represent what the book is. This is meant to be a psychological thriller, and all it is a romance between a 16-year-old and a 38-year-old. It is an inappropriate relationship. There is grooming and there is sexual assault. It says, from Sunday Times best-selling author Freida McFadden comes a story of twisting secrets and long-awaited revenge. There is no long-awaited revenge. It is at the end. It is the last 10%. It's not long-awaited. It's quick. The only thriller aspect there is in this book is the last 10%. And even that was predictable and you saw coming. The rest of the 90% book is from the perspective of Eve, the 38-year-old teacher's wife, who cheats on him and that he doesn't love her. We all know why he does not love her. We are reading the 16-year-old's perspective of her being groomed and sexually assaulted. We know why the husband doesn't love the wife. It is because he loves children. He is a gross, icky man. I felt icky reading this book, and I'm so angry and so upset that there's not trigger warnings. It would be one thing for it to be the inappropriate age gap romance, but it's another to actually have the sexual assault thing happen. Now, don't get me wrong, like, I kept reading it going, okay, where's like the thriller? Where is it? Not till the last 10%, and I'm just very salty, and I love Freida McFadden. I read 3 more of her books this month that I loved, and you will see that this was the biggest miss. It's one thing not have trigger warnings, but to write an entire book of an inappropriate age gap between a 16-year-old and a 38-year-old with sexual assault is not a thriller book. My feelings would be very, very different if it was marketed as grooming and that type of psychological thriller, but it wasn't. It was not. Now, going on to the rest of Freida McFadden books, we have The Perfect Son, which I actually ended up rating 3 stars. It was a good book. It just didn't capture me like most of Freida McFadden books usually do. It just kind of was like, okay, I know that there's something fishy going on. What is it? And when the ending came, it was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It wasn't like, oh my god, that's shocking. So you read about the son and his disturbing background, which is interesting to find out. It does keep you like hooked in the sense of what's going on here. What is the plot twist? The plot twist just wasn't giving. Then we have Ward D by Freida McFadden, and if you can't tell by the big smile on my face, this was my favorite. This was 5 stars. I read this like literally two days ago. I read it in one sitting. It got me out of a reading slump. Absolutely freaking amazing. It follows a medical student named Amy who has a psychiatric rotation, and she goes into Ward D where they are locked in there. I swear I could not put this book down. The ending I didn't see coming. I was like, this is a Freida McFadden plot twist. Absolutely incredible. I can't say much about the book because I just don't want to give it away. I don't want to ruin anyone's reading experience, but it's on Kindle Unlimited and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Now, another Freida McFadden book that I read so many of her books because I listened to 2 on Audible while I was driving to Melbourne for the Eras tour for Taylor Swift, which was amazing, by the way. So I listened to 1 book on the way and 1 book on the way back, and one of them that I did listen to on Audible was The Wife Upstairs, which I don't have a physical copy of. I love this book. I rated it a 4 stars. Unfortunately though, the tropes that were in there, I could not help comparing it to Verity. It is different from Verity. It just has same tropes, but listening to it, oh my god, I loved it. I was intrigued the entire time. I was like, what is happening? This is absolutely crazy, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. It really felt like a thriller. In plot twist, you kind of saw coming, but some aspects you didn't. It just was more answering questions than a plot twist. Now, I did not read these books, but I'm hoping that you will, and that you will add it to your TBR, and that is the Heir of Broken Fate series. Heir of Broken Fate is a romance about a princess that runs to the Fae to ask for help to free her oppressed people, only to find out that the Fae need her help more, and she needs to save not only the entire Fae race, but magic itself. Now, why do I want you to read this series? And why do I want you to read Heir of Broken Fate before the 2nd comes out April 9th? And why do I have a copy before it's come out? That is because I wrote this series. I am incredibly proud of it. These books are just stunning. Like, they're absolutely beautiful. Very fast paced. You will love it. It is definitely for beginners of fantasy and those in fantasy that just want to break from the really big epic worlds. The world is very easy to get used to. It's elemental magic. It's got dragons, griffins, mermaids, enemies to lovers, slow burn, who did this to you, found family. It really has everything you want and need in a romancy, and the covers are stunning. They're beautiful. Like, you need them on your shelves. And Aeropbreak Fate is on Kindle Unlimited, so please give her a shot. You will love her from the first chapter. Download her on your Kindle now. You will not regret it. Now, moving on to my first non-fiction book that I've ever reviewed, and that is I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jennette McCurdy. Oh my god, absolutely incredible, amazing story, and I can't believe that Jennette opened up about this. I'm so glad that she did. I listened to this on Audible, and after listening I purchased the book to support her, and I'm actually very, very glad that I listened to her on Audible, and I highly recommend listening to her on Audible, because to hear Jennette narrate her own story through her own words and hear it with her voice just immersed you in it and immersed you in hearing her story, and it truly felt like you were sitting there and she was just having a coffee and we were talking like on the couch. Like, so sad though, so sad. You just feel all the feelings for her. Obviously I'm not going to rate this because it's someone's literal life, but I really, really highly recommend that if you ever read a biography that you read this. Please check the trigger warnings though, because a lot of the content in this book is very triggering, specifically eating disorders. Other than that, thank you to Jennette for writing this and for like sharing her story, because it's a lot and it's very heartbreaking. Then we have the Naturals series. So first up we have the Naturals, which I rated 4 stars. I love this. So I picked this up after reading the Mindfuck series because I really just needed something with like FBI vibes, and this is what this is. So if you are a Criminal Minds girly and a lover of it, you are going to love the Naturals. It's a group of 17-year-olds that have been seeked out by the FBI, and they have a program called the Naturals. They are all naturally gifted in either profiling, lie detecting, statistics, body language, reading emotions. It's profiling to the max and is so fun to read. The reason why it went from 5 stars to a 4 stars for me, in the beginning, I think just now with age, I'm 25, I'm turning 26 this year guys, and YA, sometimes it is noticeable and I'm like, oh, there's a bit of an age gap now, but I definitely got past that, which was great. My thing is the ending. It was absolutely amazing until the ending, until the killer was served up on a silver platter. The page before the big reveal, and I'm so sad about it. Never would have been able to guess it but for this freaking page. This page and this scenario needs to be rewritten and changed, because truly the reveal would have been absolutely shocking. And the other thing with the reveal is that it was too short. It was wrapped up very quickly, where it should have been drawn out a little bit more. I wanted more time on it, a little bit more explanation, and it was just too easy. But other than that, it was 4 stars. Now moving on to the second book in the Naturals series, and that is Killer Instincts. This was a 5-star read for me, and it was absolutely incredible. Going in, I had lower expectations because I was like, okay, like, you know how this is going to go, and I mentally just tried to not guess the ending. And the book itself and the case that they were working on was far more interesting than the first one, at least for me. I don't know why, I just found it really, really, really interesting. I'm not going to say it because it will give away the first. 5 stars, absolutely incredible. I love the ending as well. A little bit rushed again, but still, I finished the book and I didn't have the 3rd yet, and I was so emotionally connected. I was sad. I was like, oh my god, I just want to go back. Like, I really don't want to stop reading this. And that's when you know you've really connected to a book, and I really love that I did, and that I was able to connect to it, and I just love it so much. Then we've got Heartless by Elsie Silver, and let me just say, Daddy Cade, that is it. That is all I have to do for my review of this 5-star read. I'm just kidding. This is a small town romance. This is the 2nd book in the Chestnut Spring series, and personally my favorite. The first one was good. I just truly didn't really understand the hype of the Chestnut Spring series though, and then I read this and then I truly understood it. This is a small town romance, Grumpy Sunshine, and let me tell you, Elsie Silver, this is the best Grumpy Sunshine I've ever read. Like, this is up there with Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. It is so good. The nanny literally pushes the kid into the pool for bullying the kid that she's nannying, and usually I don't like when kids are in books, but this was incredible. This was done so well. He is a true asshole, but a good asshole, and it's just, I love it. I love it so much. Please go read it. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.